All right, Job chapter 9, let's call this one Chipping Away Through Futility, because over the next couple of chapters, the cord that seemed to connect them, at least to me, was Job's sense of futility, as he is going to answer Bildad, as we mentioned before, not with anger, but essentially saying, I know, but he's going to follow up with the question, how can a man truly be blameless before God? Why? Because in responding to Bildad, how can a man be blameless before God? He's going to cite at least three complications. First of all, God is functioning on a completely different level. One, in terms of power, but beyond power, it's stealth, meaning he's moving in ways that could allow him to be in my presence right now without me understanding either that he is here or how he is working his ways around me. And that points to a third problem that he has, and that is, even if he is 100% right, God is functioning at a level of wisdom that could prove him wrong, because we simply do not understand at the level that he does. And so Job, in his humility, understands the futility of trying to contend with God about his circumstance. And that realization seems to lead him into the additional despair of feeling like he is living out these days in checkmate, that chess term that refers back to those days when I was trying to learn how to play chess, and you get to that point where you're playing possibly with your teacher, as Job feels like he's contending at this point, and you get to a point where you feel like the game still has some potential, but that teacher makes a move that comes along with the term checkmate, which is letting you know that the game is over whether or not you see it. And that seems to describe what Job is feeling in this chapter, where he seems to be saying that I've got no more moves left, because if I've done all that I could do to this point, and this is all that it's gotten me, the end of the chapter is going to essentially say, it doesn't matter whether or not I am blameless or wicked, whether or not I put on a happy face for you guys or mourn in honesty, or whether or not I clean myself of whatever sin I might have committed, because the end of the righteous and the wicked seems to be the same. It's checkmate. And there's no way I can contend with God, because it's not a fair fight. And the chapter seems to end up by saying he's afraid to even say how he honestly feels about it, because he's scared that if he opens his mouth in candor, God might do something worse to him. All of which reminded me of something I saw the Bible Project describe just today when they brought up the distinction between optimism and hope. Optimism being the ability to essentially look on the bright side at the expense or risk of that sounding too cliche. Hope, at least biblical hope, as they described it in Hebrew, the terms I'll link, God willing, in the description box, because I don't know them all that well. But biblical hope goes to the ability to still function when you see no bright side whatsoever. And it is a level of maturity that, God willing, will all reach, because it allows us to function in a greater variety of difficulties, reminding me of the enemy's motivation going all the way back to chapter 2, where both God and Job's wife noticed that through all of the adversity, he maintained his integrity. And the enemy knows that if he can get us to compromise our integrity in that feeling of futility, instead of having God come to vindicate us in those periods of time where he gives his people relief, we'll actually be incurring the judgment that he brings to the wicked. And so even though there might not be much, if anything, that Job can do to improve his situation, he can actually make it a whole lot worse if he cuts corners on his integrity in a situation where God is willing to help him out, if he can just find the strength to wait. And so my prayer for you is my prayer for me, that God help us to understand that checkmate on me is not checkmate on God. And so in our times of despair, where we feel like we are in checkmate, God willing, we seek out and find the discipline that he can give us to effectively learn how to wait.